الله أكبر الله أكبر حي على الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر.
I'm going to read chapter 1 in part, and trying to think of exactly where I want to go. I know. All right. I will start. Without a foe, a soldier never knows his strength. All right? Those who have a copy, please turn to that again. It's chapter 1. And chapter 1 is a unique chapter because it doesn't have any numbers for the instruction, but we do have paragraphs. Should be right there. Amir Islam, when everybody is on that section.
Islam.
Okay. And once again, I read in the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful. Without a foe, a soldier never knows his strength, and thought must be developed by the exercise of strength. And so this carnal nature soon became a foe that man must fight, that he must be strength of Allah made manifest. That every living creature stand still and hear. Man is the Lord of all the plane of manifest, of protoplast, of mineral, of plant, of beast. But he gave up his birthrights just to gratify his lower self. But man will regain his lost estate, his heritage. But he must do it in a conflict that cannot be told in words. Yea, he must suffer trials and temptations manifold. But let him know that the cherubim and the seraphim that rule the stations of the sun and the spirit of the mighty Allah who rule the solar stars are his protectors and his guide. And they will lead to victory. Man will be fully saved, redeemed, perfected by things he suffers on the plane of flesh and on the plane of soul. When man has conquered carnal things, his garb of flesh will then have served this purpose well, and it will fall and will be no more. Islam, family?
Islam.
I want to talk real quick about, well, let's back up a little bit. So, in the creation and fall of man, it talks about a cycle. It talks about a cycle of life, cycle of creation. It talks about how we were manifested, how we were made, how we were formed on this plane of manifest. All right? And not to get too far off, but to just put you all in perspective of what this chapter is about. Because what's interesting is that, again, in our minds, when we think of the creation and fall of man, we think of something that is, again, that is specifically negative, if you will. But in the mind, in the Moorish paradigm, we have to, we should understand rather, that the fall itself is part of the process. All right? We talk about in our Quran questions, why are we Moorish Americans? Because we're the descendants of Moroccans and born in America. Well, to descend means to do what? To come from or to come down. To ascend means to rise up, right? All right. So basically what we're talking about in chapter 1 is the descension and the ascension of man. And the ascension of man, all right? That cycle. But where it makes a turn, rather, is that through that process, there was an anomaly that happened, if you will. The anomaly was that through that process, man decided that the things that were on the carnal plane were more important than what Allah had in store with him on the plane of soul and in the plane of spirit.
That's right.
So the question that I want y'all to think about while I'm talking to y'all is, remember, Allah is all knowing. All right? So do we think that Allah knew that this was eventually going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
All right? Indeed he did. All right? So now the question is, with that being said, why did he allow it to happen? All right? To digress, going back to without a foe, a soldier never knows his strength. We talk about our plight as Moorish Americans and what the significance of this Moorish Divine and National Movement by way of Act 6 to make our nationality known by the government in which we live in the nations of the earth. We have to also proclaim it and believe it within ourselves. All right? And once we proclaim it and believe it within ourselves, and once we go through that 3-step process of belief, faith, and fruitions internally, then we have to make it external. Mm-hmm. Brother Raphael, would you mind turning that heater off? So, in that process, we are going to struggle. We are going to suffer. We are going to do those things are going to happen internally and externally. The reason they are going to happen is because we have to grow.
Mm-hmm.
And thus we have to ascend. Y'all understand what I'm saying?
It's awesome.
Going back to the idea of this Moorish Divine and National Movement, there was a reason that the Moorish Empire fell. And if we were to liken it to chapter 1, it was because we thought that the carnal things that we had produced by way of Allah was greater than Allah. Let me say that again. We thought that the things that we produced by way of Allah was greater than Allah. Right? What am I saying? Simply put, we allowed things that were, or the 5 foes of man, breeding with the lower self, to manifest hatred, slander, murders, theft, and everything that harms. Thus, we debased ourselves from Allah. What is the lower self sometimes called? Lucifer, Satan, devil, dragon, and beast. Am I right?
Islam.
Islam? When we think about the term devil, what does devil mean?
Adversary. Satan.
Satan means adversary. Devil means to draw out or to become outside of. So all of us in essence have became devils. I know that may seem like a harsh thing to say, but it's true, because when we are in the acting, and this is strictly, if you will, relative to our actions. So when we become, when we talk about this Satan, when we talk about this adversary, we're talking about an internal adversary and we're talking about an external adversary. Islam?
Islam.
When we're talking about the devil, we're talking about an internal devil and we're talking about an external devil. Islam?
Mm-hmm.
All right? So, when we're talking about a dragon, when we're talking about Lucifer, we're talking about things that we have to keep in mind that there's a dichotomy. As above, so below. All right, again, higher self and lower self. So these things that we deal with as Moorish Americans came about to where we allowed that lower self to consume us, to devour us, to and fro, if you will. And so if you devour, how many of us eat burgers? How many of us eats a thing? All of us eat, right?
Islam.
Okay. So say I have a veggie burger. All right. Veggie burger's whole. If I take a bite of that veggie burger, what happens? Part of it is gone. Till it's what? Till it's nothing. Or till it's completely consumed. And it's no more, in a sense, it's no more whole. But then it has to, it has to go through a process the way it manifests in its own self. When we talk about how the Moorish American fell, how the Moorish Empire fell, that was a process that we had to deal with in order for us to grow. Because we had became content, we had became stagnant, we had gotten to a place where we were warring with each other. We were making deals with the enemy. Does that sound familiar today?
Islam.
We are warring with ourselves. We are warring. We are allowing the enemy. We are allowing the enemy to even. Pardon self. Okay. We are allowing the enemy to infiltrate our camps. We are allowing the enemy to make us feel a way about our brother and sister to the point where we want them off the earth. Mm-hmm. We are committing the highest form of sin. Mm-hmm. And we're neglecting our jobs. Our jobs is to keep the unbelievers away. Mm-hmm. But we turn the swords on each other. Because we don't have an idea of who the enemy is. Mm-hmm. We think the enemy is something else. We think the enemy is your brother or your sister next to you. Yeah. Again, there's an internal enemy and there's an external enemy. Mm-hmm. How many of us actually look within for our enemy?
Islam.
It's very rare that I quote Will Smith. But Will Smith said something that was very interesting. Okay, Brother Raphael, you're the master editor. I was mistaken in my Quran questions. Key 64 is give the names that are descendants of Adam and Eve as Lucifer, Satan, devil, dragon, and beast. Part itself. All right. So the devil is sometimes called God. Mm-hmm. Right. So Will Smith says that when we have a disagreement with someone or someone critiques us or makes a comment, brother, I need you to straighten out your face. Instead of us thinking why the brother, or why, instead of him thinking, why did he tell me to straighten my face? He asked, why did he tell me to straighten my face? I'm a grown man. I can straighten my own face. I don't need anybody to tell me to straighten my face. But what was the intent behind me telling that brother to do so? So when someone critiques you or somebody says something to you, think about why you may not like it. Do you not like it because someone called you out? Because if you don't like it because someone called you out, then the problem is not them, it's who? It's you. Because we're not saying that something was necessarily wrong. You're just mad because someone called you out. That's an internal thing that you need to deal with. That's something that you need, that's a foe that you need to overcome. So you can get stronger. Because how else are you supposed to learn if you so-called know everything? if nobody can't tell you anything? Allah said that man is the Lord of the manifest. He didn't say that man is Lord of the man.
Yeah.
Not in that context anyway. Name one person name one man that's on this planet manifest, on this planet Earth, that rules over each and every man. That's a lot that does that.
Islam.
So when we have somebody make a comment about us, let's think about the nature of the comment. Where is it coming from? Is it coming from a spirit? What spirit is it coming from, rather? Is it coming from a negative spirit? Is it coming from a spirit of justice? I tell this brother to straighten out his affairs. I say it because he's supposed to represent the prophet. So if I'm telling him in the spirit of assuring that he represents the prophet, why should he be upset with me? It's the same thing. Brother, make sure that your affairs is properly wiped down and clean. If I get mad because he tells me that I need to wipe down my affairs, then what am I really mad for? Especially if my affairs looks dusty. Because I don't want him to tell me that. It's a very humbling thing for one man to know, or man or woman rather, to know or to accept when he's in fault. When was the last time, I think I've asked this question before, when was the last time you've told your brother that you apologize for something that you have done, or for a mistake that happened to you, or for misunderstanding? When was the last time that someone apologized to you? So as long as we have examples like that, as long as we have a mindset that does not involve unity, that does not involve understanding, that does not involve respect, we are going to forever be devils. We are forever going to be outside of the realm of Allah. We are going to forever wrestle with this foe. The question is, when are we going to win? How many of us know the story of Israel? How he struggled. And when he conquered, he was raised up. We talk about this concept of name change. But what's very interesting is that when those that have a quote-unquote question about your name change, do we question the prophets that were in the Bible, that were in the Piscean text? And how when they reached a certain level of enlightenment, of a oneness of Allah, what happened? They had to change their identity. They had to change their character. So they had to adapt a name that was conducive to their character. When Abram understood Allah, when he became Khalil Allah, he became Ibrahim or Abraham. Going back to without a foe, a soldier never knows his strength. Do you brothers understand what I'm saying? I'm glad that I have you brothers here, because it's important for us to learn when to be stern and when to look within yourself for any fault. So as we continue to wrestle with this foe, we should be developing strength. How many of us, brother, I think you're a personal trainer, so you understand how muscles work, right? Can you give me a brief concept of how muscles work, how we build muscle?
Take your time.
Take your time.
Patience.
Okay.
Pick the right weight too.
Okay.
Just discipline. That's the main thing.
Okay. Now, if I may add on, you can correct me if I'm wrong. But when we talk about building muscle or sculpting muscle, if you take that weight, or the specific weight, and you work out at that specific repetition, the components of your muscles break down and reform, correct? All right. So hence we get the concept of no pain, no gain, because that the reconstruction of that muscle, or the tearing down of the muscle, is painful, right? You feel the burn. But then after you feel the burn and you take the right supplements and you so on and so forth, and you have the right repetition, you start to construct and form your body. That's it's called what? Bodybuilding. It's the same thing with yourself. How many times have you tore down and reconstruct yourself? How many times have you allowed a reflection of you to not necessarily tear you down, but to give you advice and a critique in a manner that will develop you and make you stronger? Because in order for you to be the Lord of all the plane of manifest, you have to understand all the planes of manifest. That plane of manifest. Right? Then we talk about, I'm going to go down, but man will regain his lost estate. Now, the misnomer is that it's only specific to land. It's not just specific to land. Because in order, again, there's a dichotomy. So again, as above, so below. As what goes within comes out. So when we talk about this concept of a state, we're talking about a rank. We're talking about a standing, a position, a condition of health, a status, a position. All right. E is in that sense a sense of property. All right. But again, property is not,
tangible.
Is not necessarily dealing with quote unquote owning physical land. Because you have to own who you are. That's your estate. Your estate is Moorish American. Your estate is being a citizen of America. But as long as you continue to heed to being Negro, black, and colored, the mindset of being a Negro, black, and colored, or African American, you're not going to regain your estate because you don't even know what that estate is. You don't even know what is your birthright, what is rightfully yours, what belongs to you. Because you're fighting the wrong enemy. What word is in a state? E-state. All right, state is in E-state, right? I swore I said I wasn't going to be wrong, right? State, circumstances, position in society, all right? Attribute of a person or thing, relative to status, station, rank, order, arrangement, community, organization. That is the state, all right? We often, you'll hear Moorish Americans or you hear Moors talking about we need a nation state, all right? But you can't have a nation state without unity. And in order to have a nation state, we have to be able to understand who the enemy is. If we're fighting each other and all the while don't know who the enemy is, then how can we build an estate? Because it has to be a collective. And the state again has to start within before you can see it manifest. When we hear the quote-unquote Moorish American state or the nation state, we're just referring to land. Well, what are you going to do with the land when you get it? How many of us know plumbing? How many of us know how to be an electrician? How many of us actually know how to establish services and amenities on land once we get it?
Islam.
So these are things that we should be thinking about. But again, in order for us to develop that understanding, we have to we should know the foe that we have to face. And that foe, before anything, is internal. And in order for it to be, the fact that it is internal is going to manifest itself as something external. It's going to manifest itself as something that you continue to fight over and over again because you do not understand that the very reason that it exists is because it's something that you're doing that's outside of the realm of the law. The spiritual law, the laws of Allah.
Islam.
Think about that. We talk about what we want, but we don't know how to get it. then when we see what it takes to get it, then we want to try to go around and try to take some type of detour. We want to try to cheat. Everybody wants to go to heaven, but doesn't want to work. People ask for cake, but when Allah gives you a stove, when He gives you a pot, when He gives you the flour and all the ingredients, you get mad and say, I don't feel like making it. Everything takes work. And in order for us to establish our empire, our nation, it's going to take work. It's going to take a collective. It's going to take us to build, to put all those ingredients together. It's going to take us learning how to measure those ingredients. You think Allah is just going to give you a cake when you don't even know the components of what it takes to get there? You don't know how is Allah going to grant you, how are you going to grant yourself a nation if you don't know all the components that it takes to get there? How are we going to redeem ourselves if you don't know what the components are to take to redeem yourself? But Allah is giving you the ingredients right here. But no, you don't want those ingredients because it's not ready. It was not ready made for you. You can't just throw it in the microwave. You can't go to a fast food restaurant and purchase it with a card. How many of us know how to cook? Islam. So if we know how to cook, we know how many of those who enjoys cooking. Let's do that. All right. Who would rather go to a fast food restaurant than cook? Exactly. Because even when you go to a fast food restaurant, you don't know what's in there. So if somebody hands you something, say a quote unquote ready-made salvation, how do you know what's in there? How do you know what's in that salvation or what it entails? We are the key. Our salvation lies within. And that devil, that foe lies within. Islam? So, inshallah, that has jogged your train of thought and got the ether stirring within, got you thinking. Are there any questions about anything that I said? Without a foe, a soldier never knows his strength. All right? And it must be exercised. Must be exercised, and it must be developed and exercised by it must be developed by the exercise of strength. Islam? All right.
Allahu Akbar. Hayya ala salah.